JBNN, we keep you informed. I'm Michelle Jones, and in the news, lawmakers at odds over 50-year mandatory minimum sentence. Despite the Joint Select Committee of Parliament agreeing to a mandatory minimum sentence of 50 years for capital murder, opposition Senator Tonia Stouts has labelled the increase as extraordinary and repulsive. The committee has been considering the Criminal Justice Administration Amendment, Offences Against a Person, and the Child Care Protection Acts to determine the minimum sentence to be applied for both capital and non-capital murder. Justice Minister Delroy Chuck has stated that the government is responding to the mood of the public in relation to the sentences handed down to people convicted of murder. But Senator Scott Motley says 50 years is too long for a minimum sentence to be applied to a person convicted of murder.
A 30-year-old person who is sentenced is an 80-year-old man. And the burdens on the state of taking care of the elderly population in prison is going to be devastating because we're not equipped for it. Minister, there are so many people of that age who have every known physical condition to man. One has to take a holistic view of what one is trying to do. And whereas I know that the eye for an eye and the punitive aspect of it is compelling, I'm just saying that we should look at the consequences. I believe that the increase in these sentences are far too dramatic. I believe that the legislator has a role beyond responding to the public. I do believe that the legislator has a role in guiding public sentiment and explaining to the public what considerations are taken into account when they do this very important task. Indeed, I think the legislator and the public should also put themselves in the position of somebody about to be sentenced. That's the kind of balance that I think we need to have.
Still, Justice Minister Delroy Chuck was at pains to defend the 50-year mandatory minimum sentence for capital murder.
My view is that it should be high, and the reason why it should be high, this one in particular, because we're dealing with capital murder. We can do a little with non-capital murder, but for capital murder, I think it should be high because the usual thing with capital murder is life imprisonment without parole. Why we should have that adjustment, that it could be a sentence with a number for parole, just in the event that a person pleads guilty, then the judge would be guided by what the minimum mandatory is in the legislation to reduce it. The judge might reduce it by 33.33% or 50% if the person pleads guilty, depending on the nature and gravity of the offense.
Several detained in Spanish Town following gun seizure at party. The Spanish Town police in St. Catherine this morning took several men, including a member of the entertainment fraternity, into custody in connection with the seizure of an illegal gun at a party. The police report that about 3:30, cops swooped down on the event called Pale Wednesdays in Spanish Town and conducted an operation. The police say a bag containing a Glock pistol was discovered. As a result, the men were escorted to the Spanish Town police station. Acting head of the St. Catherine North Police Division, Superintendent Upton Nicholson, said the police will continue its offensive against criminal activities. The police are taking a zero-tolerance approach to any illegal activities and were pleased with this morning's operation, said Nicholson. Investigators are still processing those held to ascertain the responsible party for the gun. The identities of the men are being withheld, pending further investigation. Security guard killed while on duty at Clarendon housing scheme. A security guard at a housing scheme in Clarendon was shot dead at the compound Wednesday afternoon. The deceased has been identified as Dwayne Anderson from Old Harbour, St. Catherine. Preliminary reports are that around 4 p.m., Anderson was on duty at the Hummingbird housing scheme in Birdshill in the parish when he was approached by several men. Police said the men pulled handguns and rifles and opened fire on the security guard. He was hit multiple times. The men then reportedly fled the housing scheme. No motive has been established for the attack, the police said. Portland couple hospitalized after domestic dispute. A common law couple was admitted to hospital for injuries they received during a domestic dispute in Mansion Hill, Portland, on Thursday morning. The 25-year-old man was said to undergo an emergency surgery, while the woman, 20, was admitted under police guard, sources said. Reports received indicate that around 5:50 a.m., a domestic dispute developed between both parties who share a child. During the dispute, the police said a knife was used to stab the man in the right side of his neck, causing a wound which bled. A tussle developed between the two when the said knife cut the female on her left hand. Both parties were taken to hospital, where the man was admitted for surgery. The woman was placed under police guard while being treated for a wound to her left hand. Efforts to ascertain the whereabouts of the couple's child have so far proven futile. Beachy Stouts' wife was trying to run away from him, mother tells court. The mother of Tonia MacDonald, the slain second wife of Everton Beachy Stout MacDonald, told the court Wednesday that her daughter packed a suitcase on numerous occasions and fled her marital home in Portland and sought refuge at her family home in St. Mary. Tonia's mother was the third witness to take the stand in the murder trial of her daughter's husband, Beachy Stout, and his co-accused, Oscar Barnes, in Kingston. The witness, in her testimony before the Home Circuit Court, said Beachy Stout complained very often about Tonia allegedly having intimate relationships outside of her marriage. Anybody who gets married into a family, we consider them family. I used to talk to Mr. MacDonald on the phone. Sometimes when he was coming from Kingston, they'll stop by my shop. I prepare dinner for them. I talked about a lot of stuff with Beachy. Sometimes he'll complain to me about the relationship with my daughter. Sometimes I'll be up talking to him for up to 2 hours on the phone. When they're having a fuss, he'd call and complain. But when they're good, I'd hardly hear from him. After she got married, she came back home very regularly. Most times when she came back home, she would come with her suitcase packed. She was running away from her husband. Most times, she would just be there for a day, because by the day ends, her husband would be there to encourage her to come back, she told the 7-member jury and trial judge Justice Chester Stamp. The couple was married for 8 years up until Tonia's slaying. Beachy Stout and Oscar Barnes are on trial for the July 2020 murder of Tonia, whose partially burnt body was found on the Sherwood Main Road in Portland with multiple stab wounds. Beachy Stout is accused of ordering the murder of Tonia, while Barnes was actually hired by another man, Denverlin Minot, who is accused of committing the actual murder. Tonia's mother told the court on Wednesday that her daughter always went back home to Beachy Stout after he begged and pleaded for her to do so. Most times, she was there when he was complaining about her cheating, and she said he was always accusing her of cheating. After we spoke, he would plead with her to come back home. That was like every single year during the marriage. She came back home all the time. The longest she had spent when she came back was 3 days. In 2020, she came back home 2 times. The last time she came back home was in June 2020, and that was when she spent the 3 days. He called her on the phone and said he was coming down. He came down about 12 a.m. He had someone drop him there in my car. I didn't speak to him that night because I was so upset. In the morning, she made him a cup of tea and then he left, Tonia's mother said, explaining that after he left her house on that occasion, that was the last time she was seeing him up until Wednesday when she laid eyes on him in court. Attorney at law, Ryan John Paul Hamilton, who cross-examined the witness on behalf of Beachy Stout, probed whether Tonia had been entertaining a man by the name of Dollar Coin, who Tonia had allegedly said was becoming jealous. I know somebody by the name Dollar Coin. I know he used to drive her to Kingston at least 2 times per week. She did not tell me that he sometimes searched her phone, she said, in response to a follow-up question from Hamilton about Dollar Coin searching Tonia's phone. The mother said that she had no clue of what Dollar Coin's relationship with her daughter entailed. Tonia's mother said that she recalled giving a statement to the police on July 26, 2020, in which she said that Tonia had told her that Dollar Coin was catching feelings for her and wanted to get intimate, and that Tonia wanted to drop his company. The mother, after her testimony on Wednesday, was released as a witness as there were no further questions to put to her by either prosecutors or defense lawyers. Shock and disgust over video of baby being tossed during fight between women. Children's advocate Dan Gordon Harrison has voiced concerns about the wave of child welfare and neglect sweeping the island in the wake of a viral video making the rounds on social media that showed 2 ladies in a heated physical altercation, one of whom threw a toddler in her care on the ground in a cavalier, almost cruel manner. We need to confirm the location of the incident and the identity of the parties involved, and very importantly as well, the matter of intervention concerning the child. The scene of the child was dropped in a very distracted and uncaring manner. We don't know if the child has physical injuries or suffered from head injuries, Gordon Harrison said. It begs the question as to what sort of behavior and treatment that child is exposed to on a normal continuous basis. That for me is critical. That kind of assessment needs to be done as a matter of urgency, she added. When contacted, Representatives of the Corporate Communications Unit said they were still trying to determine if the video was a recent one, as well as the location and identity of the combatants involved. The children's advocate also remarked on the apparent callousness of the bystanders who did not intervene in the fisticuffs or quell the animosities between the ladies involved. She dubbed that non-action as a species of absent-mindedness. Clearly, there were persons who were present, recording the incident and having the time to share that video, but none of the persons were bystanders at the presence of men to even take the child or to shout at the individuals involved to calm down and remember that you're holding a child. For me, that represents a kind of absent-mindedness, and that's disheartening, she said. Annually, the agency's National Children's Registry receives roughly 12,000 reports of child abuse in all forms, which are dealt with in the best interests of children in need of care and protection. However, in 2022, a total of 15,068 reports of child abuse were brought to the attention of the agency, which is the highest ever recorded over 10 years. Indicom probing more than 900 complaints against security forces. The Independent Commission of Investigations, Indicom, is reporting that since the start of the year, it has received more than 900 complaints. Indicom head Hugh Faulkner said between January and June this year, it started investigations into 507 new incidents. Some 240 of those incidents were in the first quarter, while 267 occurred in the second quarter. Faulkner says the commission is forecasting that it will receive more than 1,000 complaints by the end of the year.
64 civilians were shot and killed by members of the security forces in the first 2 quarters of 2023, 28 in quarter 1 and 36 in quarter 2. For the period, there were 6 deaths in custody. Of the 106 civilians who were either shot and killed or shot and injured during January to June, 12 of those persons were identified as having a mental health issue. All of those 12 were reported as having a bladed weapon, machete, knife, or ice pick.
What are you hiding? A Supreme Court judge has asked lawyers, what are you hiding? Amid strong resistance to an independent attorney representing the frauded Stocks and Securities Limited, SSL, in a hearing for the disclosure of documents to an 80-year-old investor. What are you hiding? What are you hiding? What are you hiding? Justice David Bartz yesterday repeatedly asked Lisa White, the Deputy Solicitor General from the Attorney General's chambers, who was questioning the decision. She is representing the Financial Services Commission, FSC, the government regulator of the securities industry, which took temporary management of SSL when the multi-billion-dollar fraud of the entity was reported in January. Bartz gave retired librarian Jean Ford permission to apply for a court order to compel SSL to disclose information that could be key to the survival of her lawsuit against the investment firm. The order was granted yesterday during a hearing in the case brought by the FSC to shut down SSL on the basis that it purportedly cannot pay its debts. That matter is being heard alongside the case involving the fight between the FSC and the SSL-appointed trustee Cadian Campbell over who has authority over the firm at the center of a $4 billion fraud investigation. The trial of that issue was set for February 6 to 8, 2024. Before Bartz could grant a new order halting all other court cases involving SSL until that case is settled, King's counsel Walter Scott told the court that his client Ford was seeking a variation to allow her to get disclosure from SSL. Ford is separately suing SSL and several former executives over the alleged defrauding of some $200 million from her accounts. However, some of the executives have filed applications for a case against them to be struck out, claiming that it has no reasonable prospect of success. A disclosure order was made from March, but those have not been honored. The judge said that based on the nature of Ford's lawsuit, information is needed from at least one of the defendants to properly argue why her claim should not be dismissed. JBN, we keep you informed. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, leave us a comment, and click the notification bell to receive our daily news items.